What's up, everybody? Beasts and Billions podcast, episode 13. I'm with Anthony Romero. What's up, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Yeah, everything's been great. Can't complain.
Yeah, so coming off of a highlight reel knockout last weekend, going into the fight, what were you expecting? Did it play out to your expectations? And how'd it go in your eyes?
Yeah, it went, I think, better than I expected. I was expecting some sort of finish, especially coming off of some decision win, and most of my career was decisions. There's some finishes here and there, but I felt like I was becoming like labeled as the decision fighter. But yeah, no, that was definitely more than I was expecting, and I'm glad it turned out that way.
In fight camp, were you repping the knee? Like, is that something you practiced over and over again?
Yeah, mostly just standing with the knee. I throw some jump knees here and there, but you also want to protect your partner, stuff like that. You don't want to hurt too many people in training. So, but I like that. I threw it a couple times my Contender Series fight. But other than that, like I said, it was more than I was expecting.
Yeah. So, and going into it, did you expect to finish, or were you trying to grind out a decision?
Oh, of course. I'm always expecting a finish, especially with this one. I felt like there was a big one to get noticed by the big promotions, Bellator, UFC, PFL. But yeah, I needed something spectacular, and that's what I did.
Yeah, I watched it live. That was crazy. So when I looked you up, you train at Glory here in Kansas City.
I'm technically, I'm not a fighter from Glory. I just went there for a week to train. But those guys, I felt like I was part of the team. Those guys treated me like family. James Krause, just a fantastic coach. So I really enjoyed training there. But my main gym is Niagara Top Team and in Agus MMA with Prickett and Lyndon Whitlock.
That's interesting because I'm in Kansas City. And I know a lot of Glory fighters, and so when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's super cool. So you're based in Canada then?
Yes. Yeah.
And so do you have your own MMA gym, or do you just personally train on the side? Like, how does your gym work?
Yeah, so for my training, I train at Niagara Top Team and Agus MMA in St. Catharines and in Oakville, Ontario. But then I also have my own gym where I have my own members and all that. I'll do some training there, but more for fun. Trying to build those guys up and all that. But my main training sessions are at those other gyms.
And so as far as your own gym, what kind of goes on there? Do you are you training MMA there, or is it like a fitness gym?
Yeah, so we have all of it. We have striking, we have jiu-jitsu and fitness circuits for both kids and adults. And yeah, we're in Port Colborne, Ontario, so it's about like 15 minutes from my hometown. And yeah, it's been growing ever since we opened up in November. So it's been pretty cool.
What made you want to get into having your own gym?
I've always wanted to be my own boss. I never really believed in working for other people. Like, why would you want to help other people achieve their dreams when you can achieve your own dreams, right? So that was kind of my mindset. I never really knew exactly what I was going to be my own boss in or own my own business in, but I've always teach martial arts since I was like 14 years old. I was like the assistant instructor for the kids classes, and people were saying they enjoyed my teaching and all that. After the Contender Series, I decided to remodel my parents' garage, obviously with their permission, and I was having classes there, private lessons. Once I got enough clients, I decided it was time to actually rent out a spot and own my own facility.
And has that been good so far?
Yeah, of course. When there's no restrictions, of course, it's great. Ever since like after January, it's been growing. because we had a lockdown in January. But then after that, it really grew. Like the kids classes, we started off with maybe 4 or 5 kids in our kids class. Now we're at like 30 kids in a class. So we've gotten to the point we have to split up the classes. So we're not like bombarded with a bunch of kids in one class. We have like two or three instructors. So, but that's a good problem to have. And yeah, it's been great. I really enjoy it.
And so, what made you get into martial arts? Like, because you said that you've been training or in teaching since 14, which means you've had to been training longer than that. What made you get into martial arts?
It was my parents' idea to have some sort of self-defense. Um, when I look back, Taekwondo probably wasn't the like top martial arts to be able to defend yourself, but it was something that we had here in the town because there was nothing else really to as martial arts wise. So I did that for a couple of years. I got my junior black belt in Taekwondo, so I was able to do my spinning kicks and break wood and all that kind of stuff. But eventually, mixed martial arts gym opened up in my hometown around 2008, and from there I did jujitsu, kickboxing. I competed with my national team, for the Canadian national team. I went to Italy, Brazil for the Pan Ams and the World Championships, gold medals, the Pan Ams for jiu-jitsu, and I just continued to compete as I got older. Once I turned 18, I was able to compete in amateur MMA, and then from there, it just carried on.
And have you always known, like, when you're going through all of this, did you always know, like, um, there's a future for me in this, or was it just like, is that recent? Like, how did you figure out, like, because some people, they're like, right when they do it, they know, like, okay, this is going to be what I do for the rest of my time. um what was your experience? Did you know, like, right when you started, like, okay, I enjoy this and this is kind of like my passion?
Um, I would say I've always wanted to be a professional athlete. I always thought that was a cool gig to have that label as a professional athlete. When I was younger, I wanted to be a professional soccer player because I played a lot of soccer competitively. It wasn't just house league and saying I played soccer. I played soccer for some good teams, and it got to the point where me living in Canada, it's tough to become a professional soccer player. We're not known for our soccer until now. We finally made the World Cup, but yeah, there was never that point. It came to the point where I had to choose between martial arts or soccer. And because I was doing martial arts at the time, I saw how the UFC was growing, and I was training with people who were competing in MMA. And I just decided, like, I can do this too. Like, people are saying that I'm good at it. I'm like 16, competing with the adults, grappling with the adults, and people were saying I'm doing a good job, and it just became like a lifestyle for me, and became normal.
So when you say lifestyle, there's some people that are like just super tuned in, like they get the label of, like, they're always in fight camp, because when you're in fight camp, you dial in your nutrition, your sleep, everything. And there's some people that are always dialed in. Are you always dialed in, or do you, like, when you're are you like Patty, when you get after a fight, you just bulk up 50 pounds and um worry about it later?
Um, I can't say I'm like Patty because I don't eat nearly that much. I can't get that big, nor do I want to allow myself to get that big.
Yeah.
I don't understand that mindset, but that's him. He does what he wants to do. But for me, like, I do enjoy myself. I'm not gonna lie and say I'm constantly eating the right things all the time. I just posted something on my Instagram. I was having this huge crepe. I never get to eat stuff like that, so that's why I had it. But other than that, I'm pretty much in camp. It's not like I'm doing 8 weeks and then I take 8 weeks off. It's like I'm constantly training. Especially for this fight, I've been training since before Christmas. So I've been watching my food because I was supposed to fight in February, then I was supposed to fight in March, and none of those ever happened. So I finally had a fight in April, and yeah, it went through. But that's a couple months being in a training camp or constantly training, thinking that you have a fight. So I think it's more of the focus that you put into a training camp, that's different compared to like 8 weeks of actually training.
Yeah, and I know like when you're cutting weight, it's hard to stay disciplined when like especially around Christmas when you look over across the table and people are eating, good and you're like, well, I got to eat, this, I got to, maintain my weight. Um what was it like uh having so many canceled fights because when you're not like even in the UFC or in big promotions like it's kind of hard to get fights sometimes. What's like what were you going through emotionally there because like I know it's super stressful and it's like I just want to fight like give me anyone. It gets to a point where it's like just give me anyone, I'll fight them. um so like what was it, how'd you deal with that and what was it like?
Yeah, it was like it's come to the point where I'm kind of used to that kind of stuff happening. It's happened many times in my amateur career, and as well as my pro career. So it's become normal. It's part of the game. Stuff like that you can't stress about because it's out of your control. You can't really do anything. The only thing you can do is just to stay focused, and something's gonna pop up, no matter how long you have to wait. Something's gonna happen. So just constantly staying ready, still going to the gym, and just keeping that same routine.
And so after a highlight reel knockout, are like what's next for you? Are you still going to fight in Cage Fury, I think it was, or are you just kind of weighing your options? Are you getting reached out to do, contender series this fall or the Ultimate Fighter next year or something?
Yeah, I'm gonna speak with my manager after this and kind of see what's out there. Like I've always wanted to be in the UFC. I want to be in the UFC. But if it's to the point where like I feel like I'm begging them. I'm like, come on, guys, like I'm right here. Hello, like, can you sign me? Like, and they're still looking the other way. I'm not gonna stay there and wait forever. My life carries on, and there's other promotions, Bellator, PFL, that are paying their fighters well, treating their fighters well. And I've heard a lot of great things. Like I have a training partner, or a couple of training partners that are in Bellator, and they talk well about them. So my options are open. My number one is still the UFC because that's always been the goal. But again, I'm not going to stand there and wait, and they're not going to give me the time of day.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. So I kind of want to rewind and talk about like where you came from, like what made you who you are today. What, just your life story. I kind of want to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Like I've started martial arts when I was 5 years old. My background is Canadian and Salvadorian. My dad's from El Salvador. He definitely has a much more interesting story to tell. Traveling from El Salvador, crossing to the United States, crossing to Canada, all the sacrifices he's made with his family, and the family he has here. Just he was in the military back home, so like I feel like I want his story to go around, but I know the interviews with me, and but yeah, like I said, I've been doing martial arts my whole life, and it's hard to talk about my life and my life story because it's honestly like it's martial arts. That's pretty much what I do. Like for example, today I taught a class online for fitness. I'm going to teach a couple private lessons for pads. I have a class tonight, and then I'm at the gym. So that's pretty much my life. And yeah, there's not much to it.
But like for instance, like I'm a super dedicated person. I love training. I love doing everything it has. Like I love martial arts. But sometimes I find myself getting burnt out. Like, do you ever find yourself getting burnt out when you're so involved in martial arts, you're doing it every day?
I don't know. I don't think so. It's tough to think of times where I'm like, maybe not to train some days. Maybe if I'm like, okay, I really need to chill this day because yesterday was just super hard, maybe with sparring or something like that. I can understand that, but sometimes even then, the UFC is on a Saturday night and I'm watching the UFC to see what's happening and stuff like that. So it's I think it's become more of an addiction of mixed martial arts because I'm doing it, I teach it, I watch it. Even my parents are like, "You're gonna watch anything else other than than MMA, like just to kind of let your mind relax. But
Right.
I'm so immersed in the world of mixed martial arts.
Yeah, I completely understand. I'm kind of the same way. That's all I'll watch. Like I'll go back and I'll watch like UFC 1 just to
Mm.
like just watch it. So do you watch a lot of the UFC then?
Oh, of course. I try to watch pretty much every weekend. Some I miss if I'm not home or whatever, but yeah, I pretty much watch them all.
Yeah, no, I'm the exact same way. You know, some fight nights, like last weekend, I wasn't like they were on, but I wasn't paying like super close to attention to them and just had other stuff going on. But like, I'll never miss a pay per view. What do you,
Yeah.
speaking of the pay per view though, what are your picks for next weekend?
Next weekend is the Oliveira Gaethje. I've got Oliveira winning that fight. I feel like Gaethje is kind of similar style to Michael Chandler, and I feel like he would win that one for Oliveira. I feel like maybe it can go decision, but either way, I have Oliveira winning that.
See, it's that fight's interesting because Gaethje. Well, let's rewind. Oliveira is very hittable. Like we've seen him
Mm.
get dropped like in his last three fights, and um and battle back, which is extremely impressive. Like not many people can get dropped from Michael Chandler and live. Not
Yeah,
many
yeah.
people can get dropped from Dustin Poirier and live to fight another round.
Mm.
Um, in that same fight, of course. So, but when you look at Justin Gaethje, if he approaches it in his normal way, just going in there like the Michael Chandler Justin Gaethje fight and just sit there and throw leather, I seriously think he's gonna get submitted. Um, the same thing Khabib did to him. Like I know Khabib's in a level of his own, but when you look at submission grappling, Charles Oliveira is unmatched.
Oh, of course, of course.
And so I don't think he goes to decision. I think it's going to be a first round knockout or a second or third round submission by Charles Oliveira. And if it's in the first round knockout, I think Gaethje hits him clean.
Oh, yeah. That's the only way Gaethje can win. I see it by just knocking him out.
Yeah, and then the co-main, Rose versus what's the Carla Esparza.
Yeah.
And I think Carla Esparza's beaten Rose before, or they fought
Yeah.
before, haven't they?
It was the Ultimate Fighter finale.
Yeah. So do you think Rose retains her title?
I do. I believe she's a different fighter than she was before, and she's on another level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if Trevor Whitman's your coach, it's hard to bet against you as far as Trevor Whitman's a wizard, and I think he definitely has the credit, like the stats to prove it, I guess.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, if you look at Kamaru Usman's just striking from when he left, I think it was Sanford MMA, and went to Trevor Whitman. You
Yeah.
know, after that he dropped Gilbert Burns with a jab, and that's pretty impressive.
Oh, for sure. His striking's come a long way. Yeah, like I said, he's a different fighter as well. So Trevor Whitman's done a lot with those guys.
And then I think the people's main event, which this is the fight I'm most excited about because it's going to be a brawl. Michael Chandler and Tony Ferguson. Who do you think pulls that one out?
Michael Chandler takes that one. I feel like Ferguson's at the point. He's lost a few in a row. He's not the same as he was before, especially after that Gaethje fight. So, but who knows? Like the sport is so crazy that anything can happen. Someone can roll their ankle in the cage by accident. Like it's just so crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah. I if I were to pick, I would say Chandler, but who knows?
Yeah. I mean, the sport is crazy. That's why I love it. Like in football or soccer or even baseball, you got to play 9 innings, you got to play an hour, you got to play 4 quarters. You can be down 21 points in football or 2 goals in soccer, and you still know, okay, I have this amount of time to fix it. But in a fight, you can go in there in 17 seconds, get knocked out, and that's all she wrote. So that's why I love it. Is like there's a time limit, but um, there's a time limit, but it can be, in a split second, there's the fight.
Oh, of course. Anything can happen.
And back on Tony Ferguson, I think what makes his last, I think, 4 losses unique is he lost to Beneil Dariush, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, and I think there's one more in there. But those three are killers. Like those are the top of the line guys. And aside from, I think the Gaethje fight was pretty lopsided, but other than that, I think the other 2 or 3 round fights, but I don't think he was like too out of it. Like I don't think he was just getting manhandled.
Yeah, I know that there were definitely tough fights for him to take. It's he was in a point where he has to fight the top guys. I'm
Yeah.
surprised he's fighting Michael Chandler. That's still a tough fight. I thought he would kind of reach out to maybe the somewhere else other than the top five, but yeah, it's gonna be definitely a firework
Yeah,
fight.
because those guys are going to bring it, and those are like kind of the two guys other than Gaethje who are in that division, and they'll just walk forward and throw leather, and so I think that's going to be an amazing fight. And also another guy who's fighting on that card is Cowboy. Do you think? I know we all say he's on it. He's been fighting for so long, and the wars he's gotten in, you can only take so many of them. But do you think that he gets it done this weekend?
Who's he fighting again? I'm not too sure.
Joe Lazone, I think.
Oh, Joe Lozon. Ooh, that's a tough one. Both haven't fought in a while, so it's hard to see, like, to tell where they're at. Joe Lozon's been doing well. I think he's coming off a win. But yeah, I would probably say Joe Lozon could take that.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I just Cowboys dropped like 6 of his last 7 or something like that. He's still like a great name, still a legend of the sport, but I think a few more fights and I think he'll hang his hat up.
Yeah, I would hope so, like in a good way for him and his health. I would hope he kind of takes the gloves off and maybe coach or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, when you get into the battles he's gotten into, even the Cowboy, or no, that's Cowboy and Tony Ferguson, like they got into a war.
Yeah, his eye blew up. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you can only take so many of those, and then you start slurring your words, and you taking years off of your life eventually.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely he's at the point where he can walk away from the sport.
Yeah, for sure, and especially at his magnitude, it's not like the only thing he hasn't done is win a belt, but realistically, at his point in his career, the belt is not really like, in the cards.
Yeah.
And so, but speaking of someone who's like a little older, I think they're fighting in June, the next pay-per-view, UFC 276, I want to say. Glover Teixeira, a 42-year-old champion. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, that is very inspiring to see where he's at. Usually fighters that age, they're like on their way out, maybe fighting, but not even in contention for the title. So it's he's doing great things.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. Do you think? I think Yuri is just so good though, as far as striking. I don't know how he would match up against Jan, as far as like wrestling goes, but as far as striking, I think he could strike with the best.
Oh, he's so unpredictable. He's like a giant Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing we haven't seen a lot about him is how he fights off his back. So that's probably the route to victory for Glover.
Yeah, because Glover has slick jiu-jitsu, and it's just I think it's going to be the same result as the Gaethje Oliveira fight. It's going to be a round 1 knockout, or it's going to be a round 2 or 3 submission. I don't see it going the distance, especially when they're that heavy. And Yuri is such a decorated striker. If you stand with him, you are definitely running a risk.
Oh, for sure. You definitely don't want to do that.
Yeah, especially if you have the jiu-jitsu like Glover Teixeira.
Oh, he has a solid ground game. He's been doing well in the striking though. He's been holding his ground there, making improvements. So it's pretty cool at his age that he's still making improvements.
Yeah, I also wanted to get your take on um, Jake Paul, celebrity boxing, and kind of the people he's calling out, because like I'm personally like a Jake Paul fan in a way. I wouldn't call me a hater, but I wouldn't be like say I'm a diehard fan by any means. But I think I enjoy what he's doing, aside from the fact that he's hanging his hat on knocking out Tyron Woodley, knocking out Ben Askren, when those are world champions, yes, but if you look at how they won their world championships, Ben Askren wrestling people, um, tiring out people, dominating, and Tyron Woodley kind of the same way. Aside from his overhand right that he threw occasionally, which knocked out Robbie Lawler. So, what's your take on Jake Paul and you know all of that?
He's definitely doing some great things. Like I said, I don't follow him too much. I just see like the results of his fights, stuff like that. But he's definitely talking, and I think that's what you need to do in the sport to get the attention. You need to say crazy things that people don't believe or people can hate on, so people can talk about it. You can't get everyone to love you, and that's the approach that he's taking, and that's the way it is. A lot of people have become successful saying wild things that people can't believe, and then when it's done, people become big fans or they jump on the train and they're like, oh, this guy is the best. So you got to say things that people will never believe and then just make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, especially um, when you're winning, right? Like winning solves a lot of problems.
Oh,
Um,
for sure. For sure.
like if you're winning, you can basically say whatever you want, and especially in the UFC, which is another reason why I like our sport so much, is because there's not like you're not gonna get in trouble for saying mean words about somebody. Like at the end of the day, you're gonna fight on Saturday night and figure it out.
Yeah, it all you deal with all your problems in there,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. Um, and so speaking on that topic, Masvidal and the whole Colby Covington situation. What do you think of that? I mean, I like Colby Covington. I like his style. I just like dominance, right? I don't necessarily agree with talking about family. I think there's a line
Mhm.
where like kids are out of it. They didn't do anything. A wife is out of it. She didn't do anything. Like it's like a me and you problem, Like say whatever you want, but I think there's a line. But I also think there's a line on the other side to where if you get dominated for 25 minutes, sucker punching somebody is not necessarily the best bet.
Oh, for sure. Like that, all that should have been dealt with in the cage. That's a little too much to like. You had what 25 minutes to deal with it, and he didn't really do anything. He landed one good shot, but other than that, like you're not even getting paid for it to fight outside or anything like that. Like deal with it in the cage, and whatever happens, and that's your problem. You got to suck it up
Yeah.
and just face it, right?
Yeah, and I mean I feel like if you're going against Colby Covington, you're gonna wrestle. Like that's just one thing that, especially if you're a decorated striker but have always had trouble with wrestlers like Masvidal has, you're gonna wrestle. And so I don't know why he's taking it initiative now when it's already happened, to be like, I'm gonna go wrestle. Like it's not like Francis Ngannou breaking out the wrestling against Cyril Gane, who's Cyril Gane's like, I didn't even know you could wrestle. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, exactly. Like we're in mixed martial arts. Like this is the sport that we're in. You need to know everything.
Mhm.
You can't be a specialist anymore. Like the sport has grown so much since UFC one that you can't just be a good boxer or a good grappler. You have to be good everywhere in the sport. So that's the approach that he's taking, and that's the pay he's gonna have to give is to not have that experience, and that's what he has to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unique that you bring up being a specialist, because if you look at UFC one, it's dominated by Gracie, who's a ground guy. And if you look at now, like you can take a very decorated striker, and I'll go back to like the Wonder Boy Gilbert Burns fight. A very decorated striker, it doesn't get much better striking wise than Wonder Boy. And then you get, Hamzat, who or not Hamzat, Gilbert, who's a very decorated jiu-jitsu practitioner. And so when you take those two, 9 times out of 10, I think the ground game is going to win. And I think that's one thing that hasn't changed much is if you take like a boxer and then you take a jiu-jitsu specialist, the jiu-jitsu specialist is going to win most times.
Oh, for sure. It's a totally different world down there. Having that experience, even just like on the street, if you were to approach someone like naturally, someone's gonna be able to punch compared to grappling. It's just a different world. Someone has a better chance winning a street fight with an overhand right than someone has if they get taken down. So it's just a complete different world down there, and it's definitely something you need to have in your back pocket just in case.
Especially if you're a mixed martial artist, and especially in like at a division like 170, if you look at the top 5, like those guys are all wrestlers. Usman's a wrestler, Colby's a wrestler, Bilal's a wrestler, Hamzat's a wrestler, Gilbert Burns is I guess you can call him a grappler. I mean, they all grapple. They're all super high level at grappling. And so I feel like, especially if you're trying to make a run towards the title, like Masvidal is, or Wonder Boy was, or slash is, or Leon Edwards, I guess, is the only one in the top 5 who's not really a wrestler. You kind of gotta. I think you have to definitely work that. I think that's the most important thing in mixed martial arts, I would say, is because you dictate where the fight goes.
Yeah, you can take someone down if you want. You can stop them, take you down. Even if you don't necessarily want to take people down, it's good to be there in case someone tries to make you wrestle.
Yeah.
Like people find that wrestling is not entertaining, which I can understand. People like knockouts and all that stuff, but even like people can make it entertaining. If you look at Habib and his fighting style, you just take him down, control the guy, and then you can start throwing the punches. But just finding ways to make it entertaining, I find is super important compared to taking someone down and then holding them down and not throwing the punches and just trying to survive the whole fight.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's survival grappling and offensive grappling. And I gotta say I like a good grappling match as in the octagon. Like I would have liked to see like Gilbert Burns and Hamzat grapple a little more. I just wanted to see who got the better in those would have got the better in those exchanges. Like I think that's super interesting. But at the same time, there's people that will take you down and just lay on you because you're piecing them up on the feet. So that's just kind of like their saving grace in a way. And so I think there's truth to both sides, right? If you know grappling and you know what you're looking at, then you can see, um, you know, a lot. You can see a lot differently. Like a normal MMA fan's not going to look at someone passing the guard easily and understand like that's pretty impressive. What or pulling, just doing crazy stuff on the ground. And so I think there's truth to both sides. If there's impressive grappling like Khabib where you just maul him, there's also impressive grappling like the heavyweight I'm forgetting his name, the boa constrictor Alexei Olenek, who just goes in and submits you at no matter what. That's pretty impressive grappling. And then there's also guys, I don't really know anyone off the top of my head who's like a boring grappler. I mean, maybe like Bilal Muhammad, maybe. But that's really the only one that I can think of that would be considered boring. As far as wrestling goes, and I think, like I said, I think there's definitely two sides to it. And there's boring and there's impressive.
Yeah, for sure. There's some guys who have a hard time putting it together on the ground. But there's also times where you just need to hold the guy down to survive because that's what you need to do to win, and that's sometimes what guys do. But But yeah, there's definitely the entertaining aspect of grappling as well.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at it, like the people who sell the most tickets are obviously like the people like exciting strikers like Sean O'Malley and Conor McGregor, who's a very decorated striker, or those kinds of guys with Israel Adesanya, whose wrestling has definitely improved since his champ attempt. Uh, but those kind of guys are typically the ones who sell the most tickets. Um, and I think there's something to be said about just there's different mentalities. I feel like when you're if you look at it when you're wrestling, you get taught a little more grit, like you're grinding all the time. You're always grinding, whether it's American freestyle, folk style, Greco-Roman, whatever it is. Whatever it is, you are grinding. It's constant nonstop. Whereas striking, it's not as constant. And so I think there's uh there's something to be said about the difference between dominant wrestlers and strikers.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like you can be entertaining both ways. Like you can be entertaining striker and entertaining grappler. Um, it's just what like you got to do what you feel is best at the moment because you're the one in there protecting your life and trying to make the best for you or for your family. So you got to try to do what works best at the moment.
Yeah, and I talked to a fighter named Blake Builder, um, well, on a podcast the episode that's airing today. Um, and we were talking about judges, refs, and just MMA media because there's I just feel like there's some judges and that I no we said in order to judge or ref a fight or to talk about fighting in like in a professional setting, like to commentate or to just talk about it professionally, you should be forced to have a smoker fight where your family's there, the other family's there, cameras are going, and you're scrapping. Just so you know, like if you get taken down, you can't just stand up. Or like Stephen A. Smith, we talked about Stephen A. Smith when he talked about Cowboy, when he was like Cowboy just gave up, like Cowboy just doesn't give up. Um, you know, so we were talking about that and how just reckless the media is,
Mhm.
and how powerful a judge and a ref is, because when you think about it, they're really powerful. The judges can decide whether you have a loss or a win, and the ref can kind of do the same thing. Um, and so I think it's very important to understand what like in depth is going on when in order to speak about it or to have so much power in an octagon.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like it's definitely a huge impact that the ref has and the judge has because like for example, we were at the fights on the weekend and we were watching some of the fights before mine and this one guy was just piecing the other guy up and everything and then it looked like he was winning the rounds, but then this guy would get a takedown and hold him down and he wouldn't do anything with the takedown. That guy was getting the takedown ended up winning by judge's decision. So we were seeing that was happening a lot through the night that the grappler was winning by a judge's decision. And that's something that we noticed that there was a judge there that was wrestling heavy. So he gave a lot to the person that was wrestling. And that was just a big impact because it shouldn't be by specific martial arts. It should be by altogether who's winning the whole round.
Yeah.
And then who eventually wins the fight. But that was the way that it was that night, and there's not much that we can say about it because we're not the commission. They're the ones who make the rules and all that, and that's the way it was. So we saw that going into the fight, and we knew that the one ref was wrestling heavy, so if we had to go by decision, we were looking to get those takedowns.
Yeah, that, that I think that's something that's very smart, is looking at the ref, like how the they're being scored and the kind of what's going on in fights prior to yours, because like you said, if you need a decision, what is going to be the best route towards that as far as the way it's being scored. And another thing is, I think attacking submissions, like even if you're on the bottom, you're attacking kimuras, guillotines, triangles, whatever it is. I think attacking for a submission should be given more praise, because even though you're on the bottom, you're still doing work, you're still attacking, and I think that's another thing that's like a misconception, is if you're on the bottom, you're kind of losing, which isn't always the case.
Oh, for sure. The thing is like a line that has to be there though, because you can't just like grab someone's arm and like say that you went for a submission attempt. It has to be something that you can physically see that it's close. Maybe the guy's arm is like really extended and he has to do something crazy to get out, or you take the guy's back and the choke is super close, or the kimura, like the arm is like way back there.
Yeah.
So something that you can actually see that the fight is close to being ended. Otherwise, people would just get like the position and then let it go, and position, let it go. So yeah, that is definitely there. But I know there's been some UFC fights that the guys had a really close submission in the first round, but he ends up losing that round because he was on his back, which I don't understand, because he was the one that was initiating the finish in the fight. But sometimes you get judges like that don't understand the fight world completely, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was alluding to, is where if a judge had to get in there and fight for just a smoker fight, it doesn't even have to be amateur or pro, just a smoker fight. I think that would definitely put some of that to rest. And like another thing is like the Mackenzie Dern Tisha Torres fight, when she was on her and cranking the Kimura,
Yeah.
and she ended up somehow, I she lost a round. I don't know if it was that round, but I'm pretty sure it was, because the other two were pretty clear. And that's just something that kind of like ignited that. Is it was like, how can you be hanging on somebody, cranking their arm, and you still lose that round?
Oh, that was definitely close. I actually put money on that fight, but I needed her to win by decision, so I'm kind of thankful it didn't she didn't get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was that was definitely a close finish. I'm surprised she didn't get it. Um, but yeah, I would have to watch it again, because I know it was a close fight and she needed that submission to really finish that fight. But I think maybe it would have been the first round that she maybe had a hard time kind of getting her rhythm, and then she maybe won the second and third. But yeah, definitely a close fight.
Yeah, no, that fight was pretty good. And then I forget what was the main event for that fight. That was who was the main event for that? The Mackenzie Dern. Who was the main event?
I can't think of the top of my head right now, but
Oh, I can't either. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, okay, I'm looking it up. It was a close fight. But whatever. Oh, no, that was Alexander Volkanovski.
oh yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I was brain farting that. That was a dominant performance, and that's something that I think honestly you put Volk at the top of the pound for pound list after that fight. I know Usman, but if you think about it, Usman's not really dominating like that. Like Volk dominated Ortega. And I know he had those two tight submissions, which is one of those things where I think Ortega should have got a little more credit for, having that tight guillotine and then that tight triangle. I mean, both of those were extremely tight. I don't know about you, but I was like wondering how he got out of those, especially
Yeah,
Ortega.
yeah,
Especially
yeah.
Ortega.
There was some close submission attempts there. That guillotine was one, and then the triangle as well. Yeah, it's just one of those things that and MMA, like you can just slip out of stuff because it gets sweaty, a little bit different. But yeah, definitely those were close attempts and it completely drained him. So you could tell how much he put into those submissions, and
Yeah.
then the rest of the rounds he was just kind of exhausted.
Yeah, but it was a dominant performance. Aside from those two moments, I really think that. And so, Kamaru Usman, he knocked out Masvidal, but other than that, he's kind of grinding out decisions. Um, because he knocked out Burns and he knocked out Masvidal, and then Colby Covington decisions, Masvidal decision. I mean, and so I just feel like, yes, Usman's great. Don't get me wrong. He's second, but I think when you're dominating like that, um, you know, I think I think he should be at the top of the pound for pound list.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely changing as you go along. It all depends on who you're beating and all that. But like that last fight, that guy was filling in for Holloway, right? So who knows what these guys are looking at to be the pound for pound. And there's guys who had two titles and guys who had one title, guys who had a title that never really won it in the pound for pound. So yeah, who knows?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think like the fact that Colby Covington's not in the pound for pound list is kind of crazy. Like Dustin Poirier is coming off of a loss, but Colby Covington isn't after two two very arguable losses to Usman. I guess the TKO wasn't really arguable because he got finished, but going into that it was 2-2 on two judges scorecard. Um, and or no, it was 1-1. It was one Usman and then one Covington, then 2-2 on the third one. And then the second one, I honestly thought he won the second one. Honestly speaking, so um, you know, I just think it's hard to not put him in the pound for pound, top 10, just because of what he's doing.
For sure. Like I said, who knows what these guys are like the criteria to make the pound for pound list. There's lots of guys who could be in that discussion, but for now, that's what they got.
Yeah, and kind of wrapping it all up though, I just wanted to ask, when do you want to fight next? Well, like ideally, when do you want to get back in there and go?
It all depends on what the negotiations are for the next fight. I really want to get on a big show like the UFC, Bellator, one of those, because I feel like I'm at the point where I'm past fighting the regional shows and the local shows. This is my career. This is what I do, and I feel like I deserve to be compensated for what I do. And those are the shows that are going to help me do that. So I really want to get on UFC Toronto because I've never fought in Canada, even though I am Canadian. That would be really cool. Get lots of people at that show, fill out that arena. Because I know a lot of people want to come to my fights, but they can't make it to the States with passports and all that stuff with COVID and all that. But to fight in Canada would definitely be a dream come true. I'm just waiting for them to say when the show is going to be announced. I've heard rumors that it's supposed to be September, October, but if that's true and they know I'm going to be on that card, I'll definitely wait until then because that would be an amazing experience.
Yeah. Also, so fighting through the pandemic, how difficult was it to come to the States to fight and then go back to Canada? I know Canada has really tough restrictions on COVID as far as all that goes. So like, how difficult was that?
It wasn't too bad. With the Contender Series, the UFC helps you with the visa and everything at the time. But other than that, it was pretty much just getting the testing done. That was probably the most annoying part is testing for COVID to go there and then to come back. But other than that, it wasn't too bad. Nice empty airports, empty flights. You get three seats to yourself. That's pretty much how it was.
Yeah. Uh, that's actually super cool. I mean, I remember for football, we had to get tested every day before practice, and it was awful. You getting
Yeah,
that stick shoved up your nose, it was awful.
yeah, yeah.
And then just wanted to cap it off and kind of say thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Sometimes it's kind of hard landing guests to have on, but I appreciate your time, and I hope to stay in touch. And I'll support. I'm always going to be supporting you now.
Of course, of course. Thank you for having me on. I know the side that you're on. My brother had a podcast as well. He's a little busy now with management and school and all that stuff, but he had a show Behind the Grind, and he would do the exact same thing as you. He would always tell me you'd have a hard time getting guests and all that kind of stuff. So I know it's tough. Just keep pushing. If you love what you do, then keep going, and everything else will follow.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I mean, people leave you on red or like send you nasty messages back, and it's just like, dang. But yeah, I really appreciate you having coming on and making time for me. So yeah, I appreciate you for that.
Of course, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you. For everyone watching, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace out.